Hey, everybody. It's Brittany Hall here from the Revenue Agency. And today it's just me. You get me. I don't know how long this is going to go, but I'm going to talk about something that I can definitely get fired up about. I wish Ryan was on here with me because we love to talk about this stuff because we have a lot of passion around work and work ethic and effort and grind and all these things. And this has been quite a journey for me. But the reason why I'm talking about this today is because yesterday I went in to get my hair fixed, or not fixed, but dyed or whatever. This isn't natural, just in case anybody was wondering. This blonde is not natural. But we were talking about work ethic and managing employees and how it's really probably changed a lot through the years. My parents are business owners, and I remember hearing about them, managing their employees a long time ago. And my parents are from the generation that you work more hours, and work comes before anything because that's how you make money. And now I think it's shifted into people want more time in their life back rather than money, or they want flexibility. The newer generations are valuing different things. I know that I value different things. I still want to make a lot of money, but I don't want to die doing it. So I've found that I've been a part of the hustle culture, completely burned out. And then I'm trying to find that happy medium, because what happens when you get burned out is that you don't want to do anything. You're not motivated, and you're just like, I am exhausted. And I think it's because our nervous system just gets completely maxed out. So it takes a while to recover from that. So, it's not really a great way to live your life. And, but when I was young, when I was 15 years old, I remember I could not wait to get a job. There was a local coffee shop. I'm from a small town, and all the coolest girls worked there. My cousin worked there, older friends that I had worked there. And I was just like, I cannot wait to be one of the coffee girls. They had the best Christmas parties. They hung out after work. And it was just like the coolest group of girls. And there were some cool guys that worked there too. There was just like this really awesome thing. And I remember they said, well, we don't hire till you're 16. And I was like, I wanted to make money so bad. And I just wanted a job so bad, because to me, money has always equaled freedom, independence. You can spend it on what you want. Nobody can tell you what to do with it because you made it and it's yours. And so I remember going to the owner. I saw her at an event and I was like, please, like, I can get a ride. I will be on time. I'll never miss a shift because I can't get a ride. And I was just so committed. And she was like, okay, I'll give you a shot. And they didn't hire girls at that age back then. Maybe they do now, but they weren't. And so I was 15 years old. And she put me on shifts with it was my brother's girlfriend at the time, but she would come and pick me up Sunday morning, and we'd go open the coffee shop together at 8 a.m. And I was an amazing employee. I never, ever called in sick. I never said, oh, I can't work that day, or try to get my shift covered, because that just wasn't even a thought in my mind. That wasn't an option. And I hear employers now, they talk about how a lot of people, they call out sick all the time. And I think, how can anybody afford to do that? And what I think is interesting too, is it's always the people that do stuff like that can never afford anything. They're always out of money. They're always down on their luck. It's like, you know what? I believe that you create your own luck. Maybe if you showed up and you picked up extra shifts, and like you were the one covering everybody's shifts instead of calling out, you would have a lot more money in your bank account. That was also something I would do. I would work shifts for people. I would cover it. I was just so hungry, and I wanted to do such a great job. And I wonder too, I kind of feel like a lot of people now have this like entitlement, like their employer should be happy that they're there. And like, that's the max effort that they're going to give, is that they're just a warm body and they showed up. I remember wanting to prove myself to my employers that I was like, I did a great job. And here's the thing too about a coffee shop. When you're brand new, you're not getting opening shifts. That's where most of the tips are made. You're getting the closing shifts, where you have to do all the stocking. You have to fill all the syrups. You got to clean. You got to do all the dishes. And you better have that thing spick and span for the morning girls, or else they're going to be pissed. And I was 15, and those girls were in college. It's like, you do not want to get on their bad side. So it was just, I learned so much. And, you learn how to work with somebody. You learn how to just be a good employee, how to show up. What happens if you can't get the day off that you needed off? It's like, there was a lot of things that were different back then. I feel like, where a lot of employers have made a ton of concessions for people. And, I don't know. I guess I just feel like that's the way it was. So that was really my first work experience for somebody other than my parents. When I was a kid, like younger than that, I was always at work with my parents because my parents own their own company. And I remember answering the phones, writing up invoices, helping my mom stuff envelopes. Like I can trifold and stuff envelopes like the best of them. I could do that at 12, and help adding up a deposit for my mom, seeing if our totals matched. It's like I learned a lot about math. I learned about, taking the deposit to the bank, and like that money is going to my parents' account because they sold something that people wanted. Like there's so much that you learn on the sidelines of stuff and just by paying attention and being a part of it. And so I'm so thankful for that background. And I know that my parents instilled a very strong work ethic in me because to this day, my parents are in their 70s and they're still very hard workers. They have been really successful, but they wouldn't have been if they were lazy entrepreneurs. That's lazy is not a good quality. You need to get in and get after it. And the thing is when you're young, you're not exhausted. You shouldn't be exhausted when you're young. You shouldn't be like riddled with anxiety. And I'm sure if the wrong person heard that, they'd go, "You don't know." It's like I had anxiety as a kid, but I don't know. I feel like there was more of a, maybe it's not healthy. I mean, I'm not a mental health expert by any means, but it was kind of like tough shit, toughen up and get your ass to work. Like the adults didn't coddle us. So it was just a very, very different time. So, like I said, that was kind of like my early work experience. And then when I got into college, let's see, gosh, when I was 18, I remember the fitness club where I would go and work out with my mom. And remember, I'm from a small town, so there's one gym on Main Street, and they were putting in a tanning salon and they were hiring girls to work in the tanning salon. And so all of us coffee girls were also getting jobs at the tanning salon. So we were working two jobs now. And keep in mind, we were all like starting college or going to high school and probably playing sports. Like we had a lot of stuff going on, right? But I applied for a job there, got it. And that had really high standards in the fact that they had like lists that you had to get done every day. We were like soft scrubbing the baseboards. The place had to be immaculate. We had to wear uniforms. We had to have our hair fixed. Like it was a thing. Like we had to present ourselves a certain way. And it's funny because I see a lot of kids now, especially in Oregon. That's where I'm from. Texas is a little bit different. I feel like people take more pride in their appearance here. But it was very important that we met that standard of like presenting ourselves as the face of a company. Even if it was just the tanning section of this gym, is we had to put our best foot forward because we were representing the company. And I think you go into a lot of places now and people look like complete slobs. And I just think like, where is that pride in your appearance? And, maybe people go, "Oh, it's not that big of a deal." But I do think that people still make a snap judgment. Maybe they'll get to know you, but they need to want to get to know you first. They have to want to take you seriously. They have to go, "Hey, this kid's got something." So I started working the tanning salon. And I had a boss, I had managers they ran a tight ship. They did not let you mess around. Like you were not supposed to be on the computer. If you were at work, you were working. I did not have a smartphone until I was 21. So yes, things were different back then, but we weren't allowed to be like being on our MySpace on shift. If you weren't busy with customers coming in, you needed to be cleaning. Like that was the deal. And you would get in trouble and get your ass chewed if you weren't doing that. And I feel like these standards have really slipped. So I did that. And then at that same gym, I was doing such a great job on the tanning side that they wanted to move me to the front desk side, which was more serious because now you're doing memberships and things like that. And here's the deal is your current role is it's an audition for your next role. And so I was showing up so well on one side that they were like, "Hey, we want to like give her more opportunity." And so that's the thing that I think a lot of people miss too, is that if you're like mailing it in and not doing a great job and being a pain in the ass, you're not going to get more opportunity. And then also think about the job that you have. If you apply for a new job, who's going to give you referrals? Like I had somebody, it was so funny because eventually I became a boss at that fitness club. I became the fitness director in my 20s after I had my daughter, Ava, because the fitness director was leaving. And I was like, I'm totally not qualified. I don't have all the certifications. I did have some experience. I had taught classes, I had some certifications. I didn't understand the business side of it though. And like gosh, who would respect me? And would these trainers listen to me? And I thought I could do it though. I knew I could learn. I knew I was hungry. And I went into the boss's office and I said, hey, I don't know if I'm qualified for that job. I don't know what it entails, but I want it. And he hired me on the spot. And I solved that problem for him. He needed a fitness director. I really wanted the job, and it was mine because I went after it and I asked for the opportunity that I wanted. But he would have never given it to me if I had done a shitty job all the other times. He would have been like, no, I can't take you seriously. I can't give you more responsibility when you haven't been able to even handle the responsibility that you have. That's the thing is people are going to see the results that you're producing, the actions that you're taking, and that's what they're going to judge you on, not on your words. Your words are fleeting. Nobody gives a shit what you say. They care what you do. They care how you show up. And so I was doing a great job and it led to more opportunity. That was a job that I had for a long time. And because I did what I always said I was going to do, I always showed up, I always gave full effort. I had a lot of freedom and flexibility in that position. And what's funny is this was, gosh, like before we moved, it was probably around COVID time when I was doing different things. I was running things at the gym, working with the boss closely. And there was a gal who also worked there, who'd worked there for a while. She was very different than I was. Great employee, but kind of a pain in the ass, not because of her work, but because of her personality. And she would try to do things that like fell in my lane of work. And I was like, hey, like, you don't need to worry about that. That's like, I've got that covered. Like, why would two people do the same thing? And what I was doing was what we were supposed to be doing, not like her ideas. Anyways, she I had multiple women actually that were very like 8 to 5, organized, great employees. I am an entrepreneur. And when I worked in those business, I would be what you call an intrapreneur. So I always looked at it like it was mine. But I also wanted that flexibility like an entrepreneur, but I probably worked harder in some ways than anybody else. And I always brought this value of new ideas to the company for growth, for new ideas, for new events, new things, swag, all this stuff. And I would bring this life into the building. And they were just doing their job, which you also really need people to do. But our roles were not the same. And 2 different times, women got very irritated with the boss and they said, well, you just let her do whatever she wants. And he was such a great boss, Tony Jeffries at Mama Fitness Club. He owns it today. So that's really cool. And he said, you know what? She's not a pain in my ass and she does everything she says and she gets it done on time. I'm not going to mess with her. And that is a sign of a really great leader. That's a whole nother podcast on leadership, but like that was something, the best bosses that I have ever had were people who did not micromanage me because they saw that I was a leader. I was accountable and I was going to get stuff done. And I was always bringing new life and ideas into business. So it was a great opportunity. So I'm working at the gym. I'm still working at the coffee shop. I'm going to college. I have roommates. They are working at those places too, right? We're in a small town. We're at a small college. And, all of my friends, we all had multiple jobs and we were carrying full class loads. So I see kids today that are like, well, I play sports, so I can't do anything. Or, well, I go to school, so I can't do anything. And, you will always be limited by your excuses. I didn't have excuses because I was like 20 something years old and I had a total social life. We were like having fun because when you're young, you don't really need to worry about being tired because you have energy for days. So that's the thing is it's like we were just working. I remember one quarter, semester, whatever it was, term, I had 22 credits. 15 is full time. I was taking 22 because I was trying to graduate like on time because there was one term where I switched some stuff around and had a really light class load. So I was taking 22 credits. I was working at the coffee shop. I was teaching spin classes, working the front desk at the gym, and I was cleaning my parents' office for them on Sundays. So Sunday afternoons, I'd go down there and I'd clean their office, clean all the stuff because it was like an extra $75 a week. I was like, hell yes, I'll take that. So was I making great money? I don't really remember. I really don't remember. I was making whatever I was making and it was fine, obviously. But I just loved at making money. That was always a huge passion of mine, which is funny because, when you get older, you see what you're doing and it's like, yeah, that all makes sense. And, I think I don't remember being tired. Were there days I didn't want to go to work? Yeah, everybody has those days. That's totally normal. But the thing is you don't act on those feelings. Your feelings are just indicators. You get your ass up and you go to work. That's the deal. You get your ass up and you go to work. And that's the thing is when people let their emotions or their feelings dictate their behavior, that is going to hinder your success because feelings are just indicators. A lot of times we have to all do things we don't want to do. When I became a mother, I didn't want to get up multiple times a night. But my desire to take care of my child outweighed my feeling of being tired or not wanting to get up or my frustration or like my exhaustion or whatever. That overrode it. And so you need to have a desire and a hunger that overrides your desire to stay home, your desire to call in sick, your desire to complain. It was interesting. This gal that I was talking to the other day, she was saying how an employee at her place of work calls out sick and he's so tired. He's so tired. He's so tired all the time. But then he complains about not having enough money. But then he'll complain about having to work extra hours. So this is the thing. You need to figure out which one you're going to be committed to. Either you're going to be committed to being broke and comfortable and being able to sleep because whatever, but you're going to be freaking broke. Or you get your ass up and you go to work and you start getting ahead. You're never going to get ahead with a shitty work ethic. I love the thing is you can't, what is it? You can't have $1 million income on a minimum wage work ethic. It's just not going to work. It doesn't add up. A doesn't equal B, 2 plus 2 does not equal 4 in that equation. It's like 1 plus 0 equal like whatever. That's a terrible example that I'm giving, but you get what I'm saying. It's just, it doesn't add up. So, I really hate when older people kind of shit on the next generation for lack of a brilliant saying on that. But I really don't like it because I was always young in any industry I worked in. I always worked with people older than me and I got all that shit. I got that shit for years. I had this one gal, oh my God, when I worked at the hospital, I worked as a phlebotomist too for a little while because I wanted to be a nurse. So I got hospital experience. I took night school while I was also in college and working multiple jobs to be a phlebotomist. Me and my friend, we were in all of our pre-nursing classes, all the like biology classes and everything. And we were going to night school 3 nights a week, driving together down to Springfield. So that was about an hour and a half drive from where our college was. And we would drive down there and we'd go to night school from 6 to 9 p.m. And then we'd drive back to town. And then that was for 10 weeks. So we did that. And I also started dating my husband at that time. It was so crazy. And then I got a job at the hospital as a phlebotomist. Also wasn't qualified for that. Yes, I got my certification. I had no job experience. But do you know what? I was resourceful. I knew through a friend, her dad was the director of HR at the hospital. And I said, hey, would you give me a reference? And here's the deal. If I was a shitty person and a bad employee, he would never have said yes to me. But that relationship and me asking for that reference and my character coming through got me that job. And I remember I asked my supervisor, I said, why did you guys hire me? I didn't have job experience. And she said, well, if the HR director is your reference, like you're going to get the job. So I was resourceful. My parents didn't tell me to do that. It was like, hey, like, what can I do here? And I freaking went after it and I got the job. And I also, so here's a funny thing about that. I would go in for shifts from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. and work at the hospital. I'd get off. I was about a half an hour from my school, drove back to school and went to 8 a.m. class. And then I'd do my class and then maybe I'd come home and take a nap or I probably was doing something else. But I had a lot going on, but I was so motivated to like figure out what I was doing. But anyways, back to the story about this older woman. Oh man, she was awful. She was such a bitch. And she was like, oh, princess, and I like, it's like, bitch, I work harder than you. I show up on time. I always show up for my shift. I'm working early mornings. And she was just a bitch because I was young. I was peppy. People liked me. And she was just a bitch to me. And I've had a lot of people in positions, in places that I've worked at be rude to me because of my age. And it's interesting because I always outperformed them. But so that was the only thing that they could pick on for me, was that I was younger than them. And somehow, they thought that they knew more than me. But what was funny is I was already more successful in my life than a lot of them. And then I had some women who I still am in touch with this day, who were just like the best. They were like the work moms, the work sister. They were amazing and I loved them. So there was more of those kind of women that I worked with than the other kind. But I've definitely heard a lot of that. Oh, princess. Oh, this. Or go in to draw somebody's blood and they go, how old are you? It's like, geez. So that happened to me a lot. But so what I was saying is, because of that, because of those things I've experienced and people maybe treating me that way because of my age, I don't like to count out young people. But I do think that obviously the world has changed. Technology has changed. A lot of young people know a lot more than maybe people my age about like different technologies and different ways to do things. And what I would say is, it's a beautiful partnership when you can learn from each other. I was on a Zoom today with a gal who's new in a company that we partner with, and she just showed me like one quick little like command A is like select all. And I was like, oh, I don't have to like select and drag. And I was like, that just saved me like so much headache. Like, thank you. And I never have an ego around that. And then I can teach her a lot because I have a lot of experience. But there's those new little things that young people know that we don't know. But what I want to make sure that we're transferring to our kids and to these young people is this work ethic, this showing them how things actually go out in the real world, that it's not just all, like you deserve anything. Nobody deserves anything. Nobody deserves anything. Nobody owes you anything. You have to work for everything. You have to show up. You have to prove yourself. It's interesting. And I mean, I'll give my brother some props. My brother is taking over my parents' business and he's been in this process for years. And that's one of the toughest roles to step into, is being a child of the owner and having to step in as the new boss, the new owner. It's really difficult. And I know a lot of people in family businesses, and this is a tough thing because the workers, the employees will never really respect you because, they're like, you were born on second and you think you hit a double. And, some of that might be true. But he works his ass off and he proves himself. And then I know some kids who are working in their parents' companies and they just think that everything should be handed to them. They should get whatever schedule they want. They should be able to do whatever they want. And it's like, that is just gonna fuck you over in that place. You're gonna have to turn over the complete employment to get your people on board, because anybody that worked there with your parents, and then you come in, they're just not going to respect you if you show up like that. So that's, something about kind of a younger generation too, that I think is really important. And I don't really know. I would love to know, people who are listening, like, what do you think is missing with young people? Is it just that we think it should be a certain way because that's how it was for us? And maybe that's not the right way. Maybe it's not the best way. I think with some young people that I've worked with, and I've also worked with hungry, awesome, like kick-ass young people. So this isn't a generalization. I hate when people do that. But I have another funny story about at the gym. There was a kid working at the front desk, and this is when I was like in my 30s and was doing my thing. And he was like, well, they never give out raises here. And I go, and okay. So this kid, by the way, in his 20s, going to college, he would sit behind the desk and just be on his phone the whole time. And I don't know if you've ever worked at a gym, but you got to be cleaning things constantly. There's a lot of dust. There's a lot of sweat. There's always something to vacuum, wipe down, straighten up. People don't put equipment back right. And nobody likes going to a messy gym. And I go, yeah, they do. Because I had just gotten a raise. And he was like, huh? And it was like, I work my ass off. You sit behind the desk on your fucking phone. That's why I got a raise and you didn't. So it's really important, instead of going, well, this is just the circumstance, you need to take charge of the circumstance. You do have a say. You got to show up. You got to do a good job. It's really, really important. And so I don't really know. I think generation to generation, it's just different. I think we value different things. We all grew up at different times, different technologies, with different parents who believe different things. So I don't really love to just make young people the scapegoat, but I do think that this stuff should be taught in school. I really do. I think that we're not setting kids up for success. I think parents are babying kids, maybe because our parents were hard on us. I probably baby my kids more than my parents babied me. So I don't really know what the disconnect is. I would love to hear from you guys. Like, what do you think? What is the deal with this? What do we think it is? Um, I just think that life has become so easy for people that a lot of them don't even know what's really, truly hard. One thing I can tell you is that I have met many people who are young people who are immigrants to this country. They weren't born in America. And I was talking to a young lady the other day, and she's Ukrainian. And she was like, yeah, I came over here when I was 17 by herself to America. She's like, because the war started with Russia and they were just bombing us every day. And that was her reality. That's hard. Not going to work for 3 hours because you're tired and it's hot. That's not hard. Somebody in another country would dream to have that reality. Like, you'll pay me to come in here and work in air conditioning? Like, hell yes. What do you need me to do? So that's the difference. I think we have it really easy here in this country in a lot of ways. And a good friend of mine, she's also from Ukraine, actually. She calls it the immigrant mentality. And she's like, yeah, she's like, I don't deserve anything. I have to work for everything. And it's just a very different mindset than, when you're like fourth generation American. It's just very different. And I am so thankful I'm from this country. I'm so thankful my parents instilled a strong work ethic in me, but I don't even think I understand that difficulty that life could be. So anyways, so just a couple takeaways here. We can't change what's currently happening, right? We can only change ourselves. If we're raising kids, I've got kids. How am I teaching them to show up? I was talking to my daughter the other day. She's 13. She can't wait to get a job. She's like, how can I start making money? And I was talking to her about when she gets a job, how it's really important that you show up. You show up early. You come ready to work. You show up with a great attitude. If you're done with all your work, ask what else needs to be done. How else can you help? And you are open to feedback. And she was like, wow, you know a lot about this. And it's like, yes, because my goal is to pass that work ethic on to my kids, and then they can pass it on to their kids and their kids. And so our family has this generational work ethic. I want that to be a legacy in my family. And I think that sometimes we're so busy just getting through the day with our kids that we don't even think about the values that we're instilling in them. And I think we need to have these conversations with our kids, and we need to teach them like the grit and the grind and the hustle that it took to get where we're at. Because I would say I have a pretty successful life. But it, like, just even telling you guys all these stories along the way of like a lot of this stuff I don't even think about. And then I remember because I'm talking about it, I'm like, holy shit. Like, I worked my ass off, and it's like, no wonder I'm where I'm at, and I should be proud. And I am. And my husband, he's the same. You'll have to hear his story sometimes. But yeah, he's worked his ass off for years. Nothing is given to anybody. So, I just, are we raising capable kids? What's something hard you chose to do recently just to prove you could? Like, I would encourage you, keep challenging yourself, because sometimes, excuse me, when things have gotten easier because we've gotten to a place in our life that is less challenging than when we were just trying to hustle and make money, we quit doing things that are hard. And so I want to encourage you, keep that work ethic up, keep grinding, keep working. And that's really how success is created. All right, you guys, have a great day. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.